I roll up with like 2 suitcases full of paddles. So it's like, I'm like Santa Claus, like handing them out.
If you asked me before you made the paddle, I would have said the exact same thing.
You know, he's a legend. So it's like, he's just nerding out about pickle, like in this unprompted too. We're not gonna hide it. There's no running away from it.
What's up, y'all? We are here in Vegas for the Joola Paddle House. We're out here talking to the folks, testing out the new paddles with the Pro 4 and the Agassi series. We have Austin with us from Joola today. We're gonna kind of talk through what their plans are for the future, what this new launch is supposed to indicate, and anything and everything that you want to know about Joola's new project and what's coming up next. So how we doing, Austin?
Good, great. I mean, thank you for having me and doing an interview, and also thank you for coming out. Appreciate, you know, taking the time out of your day to come here. Of course, it's nice, but you know, it is a trek to get here. So
absolutely, no, it's been great. You know, we got 2 courts here. We've been able to try out the paddles for the last couple of days, so it's been great here. Just give us a little bit of background on what you do at Joola and what this project means to you.
Yeah, so my name is Austin Kim. I'm the product manager at Joola for the pickleball vertical. You know, I've been with the company for 2 years now for pickleball. I was there previously doing project management when we were doing only table tennis. But yeah, I mean, right now it's exciting. Pro 4, you know, a new paddle, building innovation on you know, what the 3S was. Take all the credit for it, but you know, we do have some really smart people behind the paddles. I do help with a little bit of the R&D here and there, but I have to give credit to Fabio. He's the one, you know, who's really the brains behind all the paddles, from, you know, the Gen 3 and to the 3S and now the Pro 4.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. You know, I've been playing with the Joola series since your original like Gen 0 hype period. So it's been fun to see the growth in the sport and the innovation that you guys have come out with. Before we dive into the Pro 4, let's give everybody a little bit of background of, you know, where you started from with Joola as far as paddles go with the Gen 0, what it took to kind of get through with the Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3, and now going into the Pro 4, what that's been like. This video is sponsored by GoSport, introducing the Axiom 2.0 backpack, the premier daily pickleball bag. With a convenient back paddle sleeve and a leak-proof vented side pocket for shoes or ball storage, this is the ideal bag for avid pickleballers. The crush-resistant foam-protected external pocket is perfect for storing your phone and other delicate items. A huge main compartment with an optional divider helps you organize all your daily essentials without the clutter of other backpacks. Visit gosport.com and use code BK10 to get 10% off now.
Yeah, so for a lot of the paddle people or paddle nerds that are out there, the way that we test things with like how we name technologies is going to be a little bit different. I joined in 2023, so I kind of saw after the Gen 2s, and so Gen 3 was like my first major project that I worked on for paddles. You know, back in 2022, April, Richard started pickleball at the company. You know, he was testing out a bunch of different paddles, created the Hyperion that everyone really loved at the beginning. Then, you know, they started creating the Gen 2s, which were a compressed core, and introduction of the Perseus shape and the Scorpius shape. And then, of course, the Gen 3s introduced the Magnus shape, propulsion core, compressed, got delisted. We introduced the 3S, and that one is with an uncompressed core. And then now, and that was with a propulsion core as well. And now with the Pro 4, we have what's called Tech Flex Power, or TFP. And that is a new filler at the throat, which is called Tech Flex, combined with the propulsion core to kind of create, you know, a TFP paddle. We are no longer using the word Gen.
It is a little overplayed.
It is. It's overplayed now. It's also a little bit complicated with how like, people perceive things. You know, is our Pro 4 paddle what's considered Gen 4 foam paddle? I would say it isn't. I know it's pretty exciting to have the Pro 4 come out soon now.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And yeah, as you said, you know, there's been a lot of stigma with the brand recently with the whole Gen 3 situation, and you mentioned the compressed core. People that don't know, the compressed core was really the issue with the Gen 3 and the mod. So if you could dive into a little bit of what that means as far as what that compressed core is and how it played a factor in that and what you've done now to kind of fix that issue.
Yeah, of course. And, you know, so when they were creating the Gen 2 paddles, we did see in the market that there were companies that were doing like more compressed like paddles. We weren't sure if it was by design or if it was by, you know, a byproduct of the thermoforming process. So for us, we were trying to see how can we, create a little bit more power, a little bit more pop within the constraints of what we're capable of doing at the time. And so with the Gen 2 Perseus paddle, we did compression. There were a lot of tests done at different compression levels and rates. And then eventually we did get to a certain one that we felt comfortable with in terms of the 60 millimeter, 14 millimeter paddles. Basically compressed for us meant that you have a metal mold that's in the shape of a paddle. You put all the materials inside of it, so like carbon fiber sheet, the honeycomb core, you have your the edge wall, and then another carbon fiber sheet, and then you put it in a mold, and it's time, pressure, and heat. And for us, during the thermoforming process, you can still get compression, even with just thermoforming in general, even if you're not creating a paddle that is supposed to be compressed. But what we did was we put a honeycomb core that is a little bit bigger than the mold, and so then when it closes, it gets compressed. For us, the Gen 2s, we didn't really see that many issues with it at the time. So honestly, we thought the durability was okay with compressed cores, but then it sort of started accelerating with the issues that a lot of the customers had in the Gen 3s. And so that's why we made the strategic decision to one, be open about it, right?
Yep.
Okay, like, yes, this is what we did. We're not going to hide it. There's no running away from it. Moving forward, we're not going to do any compressed cores. As we're going to be sunsetting ourselves the Gen 2 paddles because they are compressed. We're going to be finding a replacement for that, which does provide a different feeling into it. But again, as I mentioned in the presentation, 2025 is focusing on quality, durability, and the experience. And so we've kind of beefed up our QA processes at every single step to ensure that we don't have this compressed core issue. Also, we are doing, like, after a batch, a certain percentage, cutting open the paddle to ensure that they are okay.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Yeah, we've heard a lot about, what the Gen 3 process was like and the compressed core causing issues, but it's one of those things where Joola's been on the forefront of innovation, especially among the pros. Pros have really gravitated towards the company because, like, it's arguably the best product at that level. So it's not a surprise that you kind of almost have to try and push the boundary and try to get as far as you can within the norm. So every now and again, you're going to hit and miss. That's just part of the process. But props to you guys for really trying to innovate in the sport and try to see how far you can push those boundaries and really give the pros a product that they're going to like. So that was really nice to see. And it is great that now you're able to go back and kind of go away from that process of the compressed core, but still kind of maintain that power and style that you've been maintaining with the other paddles. So very excited for the Pro 4. We'll see how that goes. Now, as far as the pros go, the Pro 4, again, is going to be that new paddle for the pros. How much insight do you take from the pros when you're trying to develop paddles like this, especially in that like higher echelon of $280 premium level paddles that is going to be more pro-centric, and how much of that really comes down to your engineers and your R&D?
Yeah, so in the R&D process, we have Fabio. He has many great ideas, and then we bounce back and talk about it. Richard, our CEO, is also very involved in this process of like generating new ideas that we want to do. Then if we have certain things that we want to do, we start filing patents, and then I actually have a trip next month to China to start working on 2026, 2027, 2028. Fabio. And so what we do there is we go, and then honestly, we're on the line, like making the paddles and testing it out. We have a good relationship with our manufacturers that allows us to do that. No insurance, so if I cut off a finger, it's unfortunate. But yeah, so that's kind of the whole process that we do in terms of the R&D aspect. Of course, I keep a good relationship with Ben. Ben, considered the GOAT, but also very smart in terms of materials and engineering. So I do get a lot of good feedback from him as well. And of course, he can really feel how paddles play based upon what's inside of it. And then once we, start getting all that feedback from Ben, working with Richard and Fabio, we start creating a bunch of different prototypes. And then we get those, and I go to a PPA event, or we have a testing event with our pro players at our celebration that happens in August. I roll up with like 2 suitcases full of paddles, and it's like Santa Claus, like handing them out, just like, hey, like try this, and yeah, and then like we organize it by all the data that they provide, and then we get all the feedback, and we see what feedback they provide, and how can we alter our products to ensure that the feedback is taken to account for.
again, as somebody that plays a lot of high level pickleball, it is very interesting when I see paddles that are, help designed by pros versus paddles that are just designed by engineers that, kind of have a feel for the game but don't
Yep.
really know what it's like to step on the court and play it out. And it is great that you have pros like Ben that are able to come in and provide that type of feedback so that you can really put out the best quality products there are. Definitely felt that with the Pro 4. Like, I love the 3S. I've been maintaining the 3S for a long time. It's something that I use for most of my tournaments, but the only like real problem area I found with that was I didn't have that like big sweet spot feel of like those mishit shots towards the edge. And that's something I feel like the Pro 4 has done a really good job of, is like the vibration towards those edge shots is a lot less on my hand. Did you dive a little bit deeper into what the goal was with that Pro 4 and how you were able to achieve that and really like widen up that sweet spot and give it a better feel, no matter where on the paddle you make it?
Yeah, so with the Pro 4, so again, I mean, I felt like I've been repeating this all day, like all yesterday too. Is that, like we understand like the game is moving to power, right? And like consumers want power. But for us, we realized, okay, the 3S is at a very good point, like a good place in terms of power, right? So how do we build upon a paddle that has good power already, right? So we wanted to increase the dwell time, similar to the feeling of the Mod TA, right? Or the Gen 3s, a really nice plush feeling. But again, that came from the compressed core aspect combined with the propulsion core. And so the 3S has felt it feels a little bit more stiffer, right? Even though you do open it up and break it in a little bit, still feels a little stiff. So with the Pro 4, we added the special fillers, TFP, at the throat, so that enhances the flexibility of the paddle. And with the enhanced flexibility, it allows a little bit more dwell time, but also feels like the ball can stay a little bit longer. And because it stays a little bit longer, when you're mishitting, you're able to recover on that shot. The other part is with the fillers, they're a higher density material. It is a little bit heavier, and we purposely put it at the throat. One, to increase the flexibility, but also that's where most pro players are putting their lead tape and tungsten tape. And that's what's really important for a lot of them. So we had a lot of like thoughts, like the design is like with the pros in mind, but now it's like ready for the consumers, right? It is a whole navigation with like, how do I set up my paddle? How do I do all these things? So getting feedback from those pros and putting it there. Of course, they still add more tungsten tape and lead tape. I was talking with Brooke, this past weekend. She's like, I didn't know there was fillers like here for the paddles, and she was like, I was putting so much lead tape there. So now she was like asking Colin like, hey, where do I put it? Like, and then they just started nerding out with the customization of like, oh, like what if I put my lead tape, like, the fillers are right here now, like if I put a little bit higher, right? And so like, what happens if I put it there? And now the static. So the one question that was asked earlier is, why would someone still pick a 3S over a Pro 4? And so the static weight is higher. So even though the swing weight is still about the same as the 3S, and the balance point is a little bit lower than the 3S because the weights are here at the throat, the static weight still is a little bit higher than than the 3S. So that's why someone will be able to pick it. But again, so now people are just playing around with it. They're doing new different LED setups, which is really cool to watch.
Yeah, no, 100%. Because if you've seen any of my videos and my paddle setups, I always have like big weights right at the bottom in that throat area, because that's just where I like the balance to come down a little bit more. I like the stability that it provides on my drops and my dinks, on my touch shots. So to have those fillers there, if you asked me before you made the paddle, I would have said the exact same thing. Like, put it right there in those corners, add me some weight inside the paddle so I don't have to keep adding the lead tape out there. And now, as you mentioned, like when I start playing with my Pro 4, I'm probably going to put that weight a little bit higher. Really enhance that sweet spot from the middle out rather than the bottom up. So that's a very interesting thing that the Pro 4 has done that I found fascinating. Little question, a little bit nuanced here with that inserts that you have. I noticed that the inserts were on the outside of the edge foam wall.
Yes.
So you have that edge foam wall. Your propulsion core is inside the edge foam wall. But now your inserts for the Pro 4 at the bottom are not outside the edge foam wall. What was the goal behind that?
Yeah, so the thing is, we did try inside the edge foam wall, but it's that the feeling, it just didn't feel good.
Okay.
So we tried a lot of different things. We also tried different materials, but we also wanted to change the shape of the core. Again, like we didn't do a floating core on purpose because like we still want that feeling, that feedback you get when you're striking that ball. And so by putting it over there, it does provide additional stability, and also like now the frame makes it a little bit more flexible because of the fillers are outside of the edge wall and not inside the edge wall.
So the vibration dampening on this paddle is fantastic, and I think that has a lot to do with it, is the fact that it's really on the outside, so no matter what the impact is on the paddle, you have those two inserts at the bottom that almost take away the vibration of the impact. So that was fascinating when I got to look at a cut open version of this paddle. Now, talking a little bit more about the new partnership with Agassi, you've got the gear on, we got the paddle right here. Very unique shape on this one. Got a chance to meet Agassi and play with him yesterday.
Yeah,
that was super
good.
fun.
That was good.
Appreciate y'all for that. But what has that been like? One, working with somebody that's been in the sport industry and the tennis industry, has been such a big established name that's now coming in and bringing that passion and energy over to pickleball. And how did that translate over to this new product?
Yeah, no, I mean, I grew up playing tennis, right? And so Agassi was always, he's like a legend. You know, I didn't grow up with Agassi, but I always knew of him. You know, meeting him, like literally he was just going off. Like literally he comes in and he's just talking about how is he fixing his backhand. He was just playing
exactly.
Yeah, he's like, I was using my finger and then now I want to change it. And I was like, he's just nerding out about pickle, like in this unprompted too. And like and then, you know, for someone like of his like status and like, you know, he's a legend. So it's like him being so down to earth is just fascinating. Wonderful human being, one of the nicest people I've ever met. And like it's honestly great because like he understands the technical aspect, he understands paddles, he understands like what it means for performance, like even from coming from tennis. So working with him has been phenomenal. You know, his shape, again, it is a little bit weird, you know, when you first look at it. You know, but there are certain features that we wanted to, and it's a shape that Agassi wanted, right? So like you have the curved top, which is coming over from tennis, but then, you know, he's like, as Kevin said, you know, he had to play tennis, but he chooses to play pickleball. And so while we're doing that crossover, what's also important from that's completely different about pickleball than tennis, right? You have your drives, whatever, in both tennis and pickleball, but it's the kitchen, right? It's the dinks. So dinking is such an important aspect of the game. Right here, it's like we did change the shape so that the sweet spot's a little bit enhanced and bigger.
This paddle I've already tested it a little bit. It's played really well. The sweet spot definitely is a little bit higher, which again, from a tennis background, that's really nice to have that leverage on the shot and have that contact point further away from your hand. But also the shape that you're able to get off this paddle is absolutely ridiculous. Like playing Agassi yesterday, some of those top spins that he's hitting off that backhand
they're
and
dipping,
that whip forehands. I was able to do the same thing on some of my drops and even transition shots of really being able to shape the ball with this paddle. I think this shape is something that a lot of people are going to gravitate towards, especially those, you know, coming from a tennis background. Now with this, you have introduced 3 different tiers almost of the same shape. So you have the champion, the edge, and the pro of the Agassi series. Different price ranges, different materials, but basically the same shape, Agassi branded. What's been the goal behind that, and why this tier system?
Yeah, and so it's not just the Agassi brand; it's also the Joola brand as well. So we do kind of like we've always been focused on that pro level, right? And so everyone knows us for the pro, but we still want to bring innovation down to that lower entry. And like Agassi is also perfect for that because it does bring people over, right? You know, paddles, you know, they're a certain price, right? So we want to make sure that people can still enjoy and have fun with good equipment. And great equipment at those price points, and introduce people to the sport of pickleball. And so that's kind of how we've been transitioning and positioning that.
Yeah, no, that's great because, again, in the tennis world, you see this all the time. We haven't really seen it in pickleball, but you have that pro range of rackets. You know, you have the Federer line, the Pro Staff, you have the Djokovic line. But in tennis, each of those lines has a tier system. So you have a $50 version of the exact same racket. It looks the same, it's just not got the same material, same weighting, none of that. Then you have the $100 range, $150 range, $200 range, and then you have the pro range at $300. So the tier system, it has been great in the tennis world, so it's very nice to see Joola incorporate that here and really provide for everybody, not just the pros anymore. I feel like that's been a good brand shift for y'all. What's the goal going forward within the amateur side? Do you have plans of making the champion and edge with the other shapes, you know, your Perseus, your Scorpius, Magnus, and all that? Or is it something that you're trying to keep with the Agassi and Graf series?
Yeah, I mean, so it's just generally what that price point is. So we're trying to introduce new paddles at certain price point and values. I mean, if you look at our full assortment, it is a lot of paddles actually. There are specific to certain like strategies that we have. But yeah, I mean, we're making sure that, you know, like all of our champion paddles now, they have a textured surface. You know, even if it's sandblasted or like it's all sandblasted carbon fiber or fiberglass now. We made that strategic decision to do that so that people can still, you know, have a good feeling paddle even when they're going at the entry level price point. With the Edge, there are certain things that we're doing. A lot of it's design focused, but also we're still staying true to our core with innovation. So that's why the Agassi Edge is it's one of my favorite products. Actually, I hit too hard and it always goes out. So having a paddle like the Agassi Edge, I actually play way better with that compared to like the 3S. But Pro 4, of course, it feels great. So.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear that, you know, you are putting more of a focus on the amateur side. I feel like there's a lot of opportunities in the community space and, like, you know, just rec and amateur pickleball that Yola could really take advantage of now that you're in that scene, established with the pros already. I feel like that's the next step to get to as a brand. So very exciting to see what you have coming out there. What do we have for the future before we head out of here? What's next after the Pro 4? Do you have plans of, you know, doing the full foam cores, which we're seeing popping off all over the place
Yeah,
now?
so the full foam cores, I mean, does it make sense to even do it? Of course, like for us, we want to take our time and do testing. We don't want to go too fast, but we don't want to go too slow, of course. So we do have a lot of interesting things for the future. We just need to do more testing on it. We are filling out our assortment. You know, we're creating new products to fill it out, like accessories and whatnot. You know, eyewear is also another point that we have as well. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of exciting things at Yola, and honestly, I'm just glad that everyone loves pickleball. So it all works out in the end. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else to add before we head out of here?
Make sure to like and subscribe. Watch all his ads, and yeah, and thanks for having me, man.
I appreciate it, Austin.
Yep.
Nice talking to you, brother.
Thank you.